Kyrgyzstan's ex-president was arrested after raids on home. Look at this photo. Kyrgyzstan President Soronbai Jeenbekov, left, was the chosen successor of his former ally, Almazbek Atambayev, right. Now look at this photo. Supporters of Mr Atambayev were in celebratory mood after driving special forces from his home. See the other photo. Supporters of Almazbek Atambayev guard his home. News script taken from BBC. All clips may not represent the story. Watch to become bilingual, as this video is specially made for English learners. Kyrgyzstan's security forces have arrested former President Almazbek Atambayev after a botched raid on his property overnight resulted in the death of one officer. Mr Atambayev reportedly surrendered and was being transported by convoy to the country's interior ministry. He had earlier refused to surrender, provoking a standoff in which his supporters took 6 officers captive. He has denied corruption charges, saying they are politically motivated. Special Forces officers attempted to raid Mr Atambayev's house late on Wednesday night, but his supporters took up arms in his defense. The 6 soldiers they captured were later released. Shortly afterwards, gunfire and stun grenades were reported at the home in a second raid on the property, on the outskirts of the capital, Bishkek. President Soronbai Jeenbekov, Mr Atambayev's former ally and successor, said the ex-president had grossly flouted the law by putting up severe armed resistance to police. While previously considered to be a witness, Mr Atambayev, who led Kyrgyzstan from 2011 to 2017, is now wanted for a grave crime, the president told a special parliamentary session. Mr Atambayev denied the charge, saying that it was politically motivated. What's the latest? Special forces used an armored vehicle to break through the gates of the compound in Koy-Tash village outside the capital, and soldiers blocked roads leading to Mr Atambayev's residence, local media reported. Reports from local journalists at the scene said Mr Atambayev surrendered to officers. 2 aides were thought to be with him. Politician Irina Karamushkina, an ally of Mr Atambayev's, told AFP that his supporters were ready to defend the former president to the end. The former president had planned a rally on Thursday, but cancelled it and called his supporters back to defend his residence. What happened overnight? The raid began late on Wednesday. According to Kyrgyzstan's National Security Committee (GKNB), special forces armed only with rubber bullets were undertaking a special operation to detain the former president. As the troops moved in, the GKNB said, Mr Atambayev's supporters fired back with live ammunition. But Mr Atambayev has taken responsibility for the shooting, saying only he had a gun. 1 officer was killed, while 80 people were injured, including several members of the security forces, and 53 hospitalized. A special forces officer was delivered to hospital in an extremely serious condition with a gunshot wound. Despite resuscitation attempts, he died, a health ministry statement said. Local media reports say 6 other soldiers were being held by Mr Atambayev's followers shortly after the raid was repelled. As night fell, roads leading to the compound were barricaded by Mr Atambayev's supporters while security forces regrouped nearby. Witness Murbek Atikayev, who posted footage of the raid on Facebook, told AFP news agency that some of those protecting Mr Atambayev had seized weapons from the special forces, who retreated under the onslaught of the crowd. Atambayev is still at his home. There are rumors that additional forces will be sent. The people here are making preparations, he said. What's the context? Kyrgyzstan is a Central Asian republic that became independent with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. It is about 2/3 the size of the United Kingdom, but has a population of just 6 million, most of whom are Turkic-speaking Muslims. The country remains relatively poor, with a GDP per capita on par with Cameroon or Kenya. Dissatisfaction with the government has meant a lack of political stability since independence. The first 2 post-Soviet presidents were deposed after waves of mass protests. Relations between Mr Atambayev and Mr Jeenbekov soured after the transfer of power, and observers say Mr Jeenbekov moved to sideline his predecessor politically last year by removing Atambayev loyalists from positions of power. Parliament stripped Mr Atambayev of his immunity in June so that he could be sent a subpoena to appear as a witness in a case involving the unlawful release of a Chechen crime boss in 2013. He has ignored 3 subpoenas from the Interior Ministry. But he is also accused of multiple incidents of corruption, all of which he denies. He has ignored orders to surrender to police for questioning, characterizing them as illegal. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.